Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about the most controversial decisions made under the new RTD2 era so far, ranking them from least controversial to most controversial. Now, I think it's safe to say a lot of people were happy to hear that Russell T Davies was back as showrunner, but is that still true? Starting with one which certainly got me annoyed, at number 9 we have the 14th Doctor's regenerated clothes. On the matter, Russell T Davies said, "I was very certain that I didn't want David to appear in Jodie's costume. I think the notion of men dressing in women's clothes, the notion of drag, is very delicate. I'm a huge fan of that culture and the dignity of that. It's a truly valuable thing. But it has to be done with immense thought and respect. With respect to Jodie and her doctor, I think it can look like mockery when a straight man wears her clothes. To put a great big 6-foot Scotsman into them looks like we're taking the mickey." He worried that a scene in which David Tennant wore the 13's outfit would be printed in newspapers for the rest of time. "If they can play with gender in a sarcastic or critical way, they will," he added. "We could have had the Doctor dressed as a knight, or dressed as God, or dressed as William Hartnell, and the only picture they'd print would be of David in what they considered to be women's clothes." The showrunner feared the moment would be weaponised and used to mock female traits and drag culture. Taking into account what he said, understandably a portion of the fans, particularly ones fond of the 13th Doctor, were annoyed at the fact that he did not let the 14th Doctor wear the 13th Doctor's clothes in the regeneration, a tradition which has been going on since regeneration began. Some also saw it as his way of retconning her era and erasing it now he was in control, while some others found it to be a poor excuse, as in the same episode the Master wore her exact same clothes, and as Jodie and the creative team behind the costume said the costume could be worn by male or females, and it was made with that in mind, the fans again felt it was not justified. Russell has since come out to debunk the theory of erasing her era, making it clear in Doctor Who magazine, and now we have had 4 episodes from his era shown on TV. It's clear that 13th Doctor and the implications of the Flux and the Timeless Child still very much exist in the Whoniverse and will play a part in his new era of the show. Next at number 8 we have David Tennant as the 14th Doctor. I think even prior to the 60th it is safe to say David was still very much part of the Whoniverse, still appearing in games, books, audios and a whole host of other things, so to have David Tennant back as the 14th Doctor, not the 10th, had some fans feeling like this was not the correct move. Russell has said in interviews he had no worries about bringing David back and how it would be done, saying Jodie Whittaker simply regenerates into David Tennant is how he saw it. Although David is a fan favourite among fans and the general viewing audience, some were understandably facing fatigue with his constant appearances and felt this was a step in the wrong direction. Not only because it crosses a line a lot would say should never be crossed, an actor returning to become another incarnation again, as Doctor Who's all about change, but as it was never done before and could be perceived as a desperate attempt from the BBC to bring back old fans after what could be perceived as a dip in quality. Also, despite this not being the first time the numbering has been changed or tampered with, fans felt it was cheating the number 14 and felt Ncuti should be the true 14th Doctor and not David, with him should have been an in-between regeneration. With his Doctor now having come and gone, kinda, the majority of fans who did see this as a negative have moved on since and made their peace with it. Moving to number 7 we have Davros and his seemingly permanent change. What fans originally viewed as Davros just out of his chair because it was a younger version of himself was actually in fact Russell and the team behind the Children Need Special making the permanent change to his appearance due to the completely untrue negative stereotype of the link between disabilities and evilness. Russell said this is how we see Davros now. He used to look like that and now he looks like this, and was very short and certain on the matter in Doctor Who Unleashed. With Davros being well known for his appearance and being the creator of the Daleks being part of British pop culture since 1975, fans were angry at the fact that he made this permanent change to his character. Debate broke out on whether his chair was a wheelchair or not, and whether this was a justified thing to do to an established character, taking into account Russell in his previous era was behind the making of a couple of disabled villains himself. Many fans with disabilities voiced their opinions online, with some agreeing and some disagreeing with the decision made. Several fans themselves have also said they would rather not see Davros return than to have this change implemented in the future. At number 6 we have Millie Gibson's supposed exit and the BBC's radio silence. At the beginning of the year it was rumoured Millie was axed by the tabloids when it was seen that a new companion, Verada, was filming with Ncuti Gatwa. A lot of rumours began flying about, and her being a diva and being fired, which at the time is a lot for an actor to deal with, especially at 19 years of age. Understandably, a lot of fans were frustrated at Russell and the BBC for not speaking out and clearing the air, till recently, leaving it several months before we found out this was not true. Whilst they cannot be responsible for what leaks happen and what the tabloids say, the BBC is known for not speaking out or looking after their actors when it comes to Doctor Who at times. But seeing as this has all turned out to be false, it is far less controversial than the next decisions. Not taking place for another week yet is the midnight and double episode release at number 5. Doctor Who, since its beginning in 1963, has always been known for its primetime slot and most importantly for having a week-by-week episode release, usually with a cliffhanger to keep people tuned in for the following week. But for the first time in the show's history, it is releasing at midnight on BBC iPlayer, with the first 2 episodes coming out one after the other. Expectedly, a few fans were not happy with this change in this format of the show, which has been so integral to the show's past. Not only are fans annoyed that they have to avoid spoilers throughout the day if they wanted to watch it on TV later that day, but that 2 episodes released together, seeing as Doctor Who was never originally meant to be binged. Some see it as unnecessary to release 2 together, especially seeing as they are seemingly unrelated, and are confused as to the reasons parts of America get it at the prime time of TV and us at midnight then later that day. But this is not the only radical change to a big part of the show. At number 4 we have the 15th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver. A lot would argue that the 14th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver made under the new RTD2 era was one of, if not, the best Sonic Screwdriver ever made. So it's not too much of a surprise when the 15th Doctor's was a major step in a different direction, making it stick out like a sore thumb from the other previous Sonics. Fans felt strongly about this one. Fans everywhere are making fun of its look, from saying it looks like a remote to a sexual object. This is not the first time this has happened, but the first time the Sonic has almost become completely unrecognisable. So with that, and the fact that just before we had one of the best, it's clear to see why it faced so much backlash. The show is already stepping into unknown territory, and this did not help. Reaching number 3 is the bi-generation happening in the Giggle, which saw the 14th Doctor regenerate and remain in this incarnation, whilst making his future incarnation and splitting from him, making 2 Doctors. In the show's history, but notably more recently than not, we have had regenerations which do not change their face, fake regenerations, and now bi-generations. It has been said multiple fans enjoyed the Giggle up until this moment for several reasons. Some don't like the idea of another Doctor and another TARDIS being out there, considering they never wanted to do that in a parallel universe, and the fact that Russell T Davies added fuel to the fire by saying he likes to think every Doctor bi-generated, which of course would create several issues and paradoxes in the show if this was true. Fans also feel fatigued from the changes to the show's lore, so having this new possibility thrown in with regeneration came at the wrong time for some. Coming in at number 2 is it being called Season 1, not Series 14. The majority of fans refuse to call it Season 1 due to a range of reasons, from not liking its separation from New Who, to Classic Who already being called Seasons already. A number also feel this is not too much of a difference of series to label it completely separate, seeing the rebrand as a failure. It also throws up the issue when Russell steps away and hopefully new showrunner takes over, will they then label their series Season 1, and so on, till we have a vast range of Season 1s, making this show feel more separate than ever. And seeing the BBC partnership with Disney in terms of Doctor Who, it does not sit well with people. Which neatly brings us on to the most controversial decision under the new RTD2 era so far, and that is the involvement with Disney. From a fandom which can be so divided, I think almost everyone is in agreement that at least they are uneasy about this partnership and how it will affect the beloved show. Some are trying to stay hopefully optimistic, with others writing it off already. It also does not help that a lot of controversies mentioned so far have a huge part to do with Disney. It would seem like Season 1, Midnight Release and the 15th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver all have a part to play. Disney has been known to ruin franchises before, and a lot of fans hope they don't do the same with Doctor Who. Some would argue that Disney has too much control over the BBC show and fear how badly they have changed Doctor Who. Unfortunately, until Season 1 begins to release next week, it won't be known for sure. Doctor Who has always thrived on change, but stepped too far away with what is known, and the fans could be left with a show completely unrecognisable. Some honourable mentions include, "It's a shame you're not a woman anymore, because you would have understood" line. Donna's easy way out of the memory wipe, with Rose Noble being the non-binary part of the Dr. Donna. Meep and their pronouns. Russell telling Shooty off for swearing in costume. Mavity and Isaac Newton being played by a non-white actor. And continuing the Timeless Child story arc starting next week. But what are my thoughts on them? Well, starting with what I would say is the most least controversial, the 14th Doctor's outfit regeneration. That is one that I felt was really controversial for myself personally, because I really didn't like how they were sort of rewriting the 13th Doctor, what it felt like at the time, and also how it sort of took away the reasoning behind why they made her costume. Jodie Whittaker and the costume designers made it so it wasn't specifically for male or female, and I felt like Russell T Davies was sort of ignoring that and just deciding to do it for a different reason. I understand his reasons for drag and everything, and I do understand it now, so I've sort of like made my peace with it. But still, I'm not too sure in it, and I still feel like the 14th Doctor should have been wearing her outfit, but then again, there wasn't much time of the 14th Doctor. Really, he only had 3 episodes, so I feel like I can understand why. And then again, I couldn't see the 14th Doctor sort of wearing his old clothes again, so I feel like it sort of matches how they've done it. But still, I'm not too sure on it, and I was quite disappointed with that. So that's what I would say, is, for me, is one of the most controversial for me. Next up is the 14th Doctor as David Tennant. Now, for me, I've always felt like this crosses a line that Doctor Who should never do. Doctor Who is all about change, and I felt like going back to an old Doctor, especially one like David Tennant, does send out the wrong messages. And I feel like now you've brought back one Doctor, you could do it again. So I'm going to be expecting one day for Jodie Whittaker to come back, and I want her to come back now, because that's the case, that can happen. But I still don't know about crossing the line. I like how they did a story behind it of his old face, because he was getting tired. But I'm still not 100% on it, and I still feel like there could be bad consequences to it which we haven't seen yet. So for me, the jury's still out on it, but I do feel like if before this all happened, I would have always said that you should never bring an old Doctor back, and still I'm not too sure on it. So again, I feel like the jury's out on it, but it could be a mistake Doctor Who wishes they never made. Another one for me which I felt was quite controversial was Davros. Now, I really do like Davros and how he looks in his character, so to hear that they're changing it, I was quite upset about it. But I completely understand the reasoning, and I'm really glad that Doctor Who are trying to contribute towards trying to stamp out the untrue link between evilness and disability, and I'm really glad they're doing that. But to change the character Davros, who's been known since for about 50 years, I just feel like it's not the greatest move. I would be really happy for them to never ever bring a new character in who is evil and disabled, or even bring back an old one except Davros. But I never saw Davros as disabled. I have done a video on this, so if you want to see more about it, then make sure you check it out. But I've never seen Davros as disabled. I've always seen the chair sort of a life support machine, not necessarily because he's disabled. So for me, I just felt like this was the wrong move to do, especially because he's so well known for how he looks. So I would much rather they never bring him back or just show him when he was young, like they did in the Children Need Special. So this one for me is quite controversial. Again, I'm really glad they're stamping out the untrue link, but I'm just so upset that they're just sort of like tampering with a character who's so well known for his look in the UK and just sort of like in British culture in general. Another is Millie Gibson's supposed exit. Now, I was more upset that they were getting rid of Millie Gibson, or what we thought was going to be getting rid of Millie Gibson, than actually sort of what was going on around it. Although I do feel like the BBC should have put a statement out earlier. I feel like it really wasn't good for Millie Gibson, especially with her only being about 19. So I would say that's the most controversial bit of the whole situation. But in general, for me, it isn't too controversial. Next is the midnight release and double episode release. Now, I would say more the double episode release is more controversial, because I'm going to have to spend a whole week staying off social media and trying to be off everything, which can be quite difficult to avoid spoilers, especially when you try your best, because sometimes they just pop up, and sometimes you're just in the force of habit on clicking on something and then seeing something you wish you never. So I feel like that is more controversial out of the two. But getting it at midnight, I really feel like, because we are the UK and this is where Doctor Who sort of made and based, I feel like we should be getting it at the prime time slot. Yes, we will be getting it later that day on BBC One, but I really wish we got it at 7 o'clock and then it wasn't sort of prime time and sort of during the day for America. As much as it's great for the American fans, I'm really pleased for them, I just feel like we should be getting that instead. So yeah, that's a bit selfish, I suppose, but that's just my opinion on it. It's more controversial that we're releasing 2 episodes at once than that they're doing it at midnight. I'm more upset about that than the midnight release. But again, I'm really not happy about either, to be honest. The 15th Doctor Sonic, when it first appeared, people were quite mixed on it. For me, I'm mixed and I'm still not sure where I would rank it, sort of thing, and how I feel about it. Because half of me feel like it's good and I like the colour and how they've gone something different with it. But then the other half of me doesn't like the look and I just feel like it looks too cheap and silly. So I'm still not sure on it, so I'm quite on the fence, but I can see why this is controversial, because for me, I've got two sides where I like it and I don't, so I can see why it's very controversial. The second most controversial thing is being called it Season 1 instead of Series 14. For me, it's really difficult because I'm so in the habit of saying Series 14, and a lot of the times I've got to quickly change what I'm saying because no, they're calling it Season 1. But For me, I don't like how they've sort of done it as well because it detaches from New Who. And for me at the moment, it doesn't feel like it's going to be too different. I feel like they should have really kept calling it Series 14. I can understand Disney calling it Season 1, but we have to call it Season 1 as well. It just doesn't feel right because Season 1 is 1963, Series 1 is 2005, and I feel like calling it Season 1 again in 2024, it just doesn't feel right because it just feels quite connected to New Who as well. So I don't like it, and it can be quite confusing when talking about Season 1, and you're just really not sure what to call it sometimes. Should you call it Series 14? Should you call it Season 1? So yeah, this one I can see why it's controversial because it's sort of like playing into that whole Disney change. So for me, I wouldn't say it was too bad, but I'm just not keen on it, that's all. And then the most controversial is Disney. For me, the jury's still out on it. I really do feel like we need to see this new season and see what it's like before we can really say. Because at the moment, there have been some decisions where I haven't been keen on, and I feel like Disney play a huge part. But we just need to see how this new type of Doctor Who plays out with the more fancy and supernatural type vibes. And just see how the season goes, how the Doctor goes, just sort of how everything goes before we can really say. At the moment, Disney's involvement has been good and bad. I think it's going to help save the future of Doctor Who if anything ever happens to the BBC. But then again, if this doesn't work out with Disney, then it could actually ruin Doctor Who. So I feel like it is just too soon to say. But either way, I feel like we're going to find out soon. So we've just got to hold on for that. But yeah, in general, I feel like Disney's involvement is quite controversial, and I'm still not too sure about it. We just got to wait and see how it turns out. But that's just my opinion. What I'd love to know is what you guys think. What is the most controversial for you, and what is the decision you hated the most? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, then make sure you're subscribed, because when I reach 500 subscribers, I'm going to be making a tour of my TARDIS on how I made it, and how you can make your own. So if you enjoyed the video and loved to see it, then make sure you're subscribed. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully see you in my next video soon. I feel like this is probably going to be my last video before Season 1 comes out, because then I'll be doing my initial thoughts and then a full review of each episode. So this is probably going to be my last video until it. So I hope you all enjoy Season 1 and Episode 1, The Space Babies. I'm certainly looking forward to it, and we're going to see how it all turns out. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are as well. But again, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully see you in my next video soon. Thank you all for watching, and take care.